Good afternoon, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Rift Amps. Before we start, big thanks to one of our subscribers who sent me this lovely Fender Stratocaster t-shirt. Very big fan of this. Really comfy, really nice, great fitting, and perfect for the sunny weather that we're having. So thank you very much. You know who you are. I really appreciate it. This is the deluxe reverb reissue, the one that came in for no reverb. And if you remember, we diagnosed we had an open coil on the reverb tank itself, but we also had, there's an intermittent wire break inside the cables. So it's had a new tank, new cables. Customer always wanted, also wanted to get the thing fully serviced and sorted out. So I've done an electrolytic recap on it. There are a couple of toasty looking resistors and things inside, so they've been done, gone through the full service, and everything's back together, fully biased up. Customer also supplied some other valves which I've gone through, and the ones that are actually in it test better than the spares that were supplied, so they've remained in there, all biased up nicely, all sorted. The only other thing was the for those that don't know, UK Fenders are wired for 230 volts, even though what we actually get out the wall most of the time is 240. So if you have a UK Fender, it's often worth rewiring it. Now the transformer does have a 240 volt tap for Australian models, and all you have to do is swap over two wires. In this case, it's the white and black wire with the black wire on connection points CP2 and CP8. Those two just need reversing round. It's easy to do on the board. Obviously, if you're going to do it yourself, discharge the amp, make sure it's safe, etc. And that resets the mains voltage for a safer option. Right, Q&A time. Loads and loads of comments and questions over the last week, especially about the £200 rusty super reverb. So but there's some others as well which we're going to get to. I don't want to make this episode all about the super reverb, so in fact we'll go the opposite. We'll maybe come back to that at a later date. Anyway, Chris Phillips says, I really like your rabbit hole on the CompuBias. I love that you took the time to fix it. Well, we had no choice, did we? Because the business, they've gone out of business, they don't make them anymore. And if I want to keep the thing working, it's my only option. So, but thank you, I do appreciate the comment. I was pleased that it was just only the input socket, this thing. Yeah, easy enough to fix and sort. So and it's up and working, and it's been running great, and I was using it without issue again. So yeah, good news. A more general question: if you were modding a 5F6A basement, Tweed basement build, and you wanted to put reverb in, how would you approach it? I know, deep question. I'm about to embark on a custom Tweed basement build in a twin chassis, so feel free to wax poetic on this idea if you so desire. Well, I don't need to because I've already done it. I've added reverb to both Tweed basements and JTM45 builds. So I do it with my own single tube or single valve reverb circuit that I have, that I just modify to insert it wherever I need to, in whatever point in the circuit I need to. Sorry, just make sure that the input and output impedances are correct. So usually I put them post tone stack. So on a Tweed basement 5F6A or a JTM45, you've got your two channels. They're then mixed together, and then they go into the cathode follower tone stack and go through all that circuitry. And as it comes out, post that point is usually where I would put the reverb, but I have put them after the next gain stage as well, before the phase inverter. So lots of different ways to do it. And the best one I did, not the best one, the most interesting one I did was when I did it on a high-powered Tweed twin build as well. So there is, it can be done. It does sound good, But do bear in mind that any reverb circuit that you insert into an amp that is known for having a certain level of gain and overdrive, reverb circuits always take away just a little bit. They are a little bit lossy, and you can try and compensate for that, but there's always a noticeable difference. Whether that difference is good or bad is, of course, up to the player. So, but it can be done. You've still got to make sure you've got enough space to physically do it in your chassis, which I think you said you do. So yeah, have a go, see what you think. Reverb circuits can be surprisingly simple. If you look at what you actually need, you need a drive stage and a recovery stage with really 6 or 7 components, plus transformers, sockets, bits and pieces like that. So yeah, have a go. See, let me know how you get on. I will be interested to see what you come up with. Wobby Wall says, read the output impedance mismatch on the Vox AC15 anniversary. Would it not be a greater concern if the amp was driving 8 ohms when considered for 16? A greater concern? Probably not greater, but still the same concern, same level of concern. Impedance mismatching or impedance matching is all about the most efficient way of transferring power. That's an easy way to think of it. Now, when you've got an impedance mismatch in an output stage like that, so in the scenario we've got a 16 ohm driver speaker into an 8 ohm tap, which means the reflected impedance on the valves is double. In your scenario, the reflected impedance would be half, so the operating condition of the valves in either scenario is different to what would be optimal. Now, in that particular amp, the optimal operating conditions are already highly stressed, so whichever way you go, something has to give. And as we've seen in that particular amp, it's the rectifier valve that eventually says, no thank you, not having that, and it starts to have problems. So I see what you're saying. Yes, it would be yeah, if you had, I'm trying to work out what angle you're coming from, so bear with me. But if you're the amp was driving 8 ohms when configured for 16, so when you've got twice the reflective impedance, no, actually I would argue that's less of a concern in real life. I'd have to sit down and draw some load lines to work out exactly in that particular amp what would actually be happening with the voltages and the operating conditions currently set. But no, I mean, either way is either double or half is not optimal, which is why I always say don't mess around with impedance mismatching unless you're 100% sure that the circuit can handle it. Just run things as they were designed, or as safely as you can, and you then run less risk of anything going wrong. Does that make sense? Yeah. I will go into impedance mismatching more. That's another good idea for a special video. Some amps can handle it more than others, and which is why, unless you're absolutely sure what's going on inside your particular amp, just don't take the risk. Just don't bother. But there you go. Yeah, very interesting. Mystery box time. So, got a box here. It's probably got a guitar amplifier inside. I think that would be a safe bet to make. Let's have a look then. So it says on top, Chris at Rift Amps, open this first. So let's get that out, shall we? Here we go. Hi Chris, Watkins Scout. I've used this amp for many years and never had it serviced. I've always used the mic channel. I think it has more gain, but it would be good to get both channels and trem working. The valve guards were on V1 and V2. If you need to put on a new mains lead, please could it be the same length as the old one? Also, it has an old style 13 amp plug and the earth seems to go to the transformer rather than to the chassis. Okay, one small modification. Please could you fit an extension speaker socket? There is an old socket fitted in the plug lead storage area, not sure what it was for. Okay, maybe the a foot switch for the tremolo. I've noticed some of the wood screws are not holding. I've done a quick fix and will fill and redraw them when I get the amp back. The cardboard packing box has a lid, so the best way to unpack it would be to cut the tape around the lid. Oh, look at that little... That's clever. I enjoyed that. From Pete. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate that. Well, let's get this thing open then. Have a look inside. Make sure it's survived its journey to me. Watkins Scout, which I think is a single channel dominator. I think. Just making sure there's no personal information on here that I'm going to be giving away. There is on the back, so I won't rotate the box around. Okay. Would you look at that? I love these two-tone style cabinets. You know, very retro, but also, for the time, quite futuristic looking. Watkins, wow. And that grill cloth. Is it cloth? No, I don't think it is. Okay, so mains cable. Probably valves in there. Let's get you in for a closer look, shall we? Watkins Scout controlled power amplifier. So we've got a voltage selector here. 200, 225 and 250, and it is set for 250. On off volume control, I guess. Tone control. Tremolo speed and depth. And that's for the micro. Is that? Ah, so that's the volume for that channel? These two channels? Two ones here. Inputs, microphone. And we'll have to work this out. I can't quite understand this labeling. You've got a foot switch plug here, RCA. Wow. Okay. Gonna have to do some research on this model because I don't quite recognise or understand what it is. Okay, so there is, right down in this compartment here, a little sticker, which I'm going to try and get you zoomed in on. Watkins Electrical Music Limited, serial number 10551. Have a quick look inside his box. Mullard ECC83. It's one of the later ones. Still made in Great Britain. You can always tell by this logo. If it's got this logo on, they are slightly later than the ones that you see in the Voxes and things like that. The earlier ones. Like the yellow print and the white print. There you go. That's exactly the type. So this is an earlier Mullard. Very cool. Right. Let's keep going. An EL84 rectifier, ERA. Very interesting plate structure inside. Then 90 degrees to each other. Bottom one versus the top one. You see that? Very cool. Mullard EL84. And its sister valve. Another Mullard ECC83. I mean, that's a valve lineup if I ever saw one. Whew. Right, okay. Shall we get this back panel off on the cabinet and have a look inside. So I'm just working on another Ainsley Lister build. I'm just doing my transformer twisties, my outside my chassis twists and wire runs. So apologies if you keep hearing the heat gun go as I do the heat shrink. But I do like these things to be neat. Anyway, Max Vockner, who is a regular commenter, welcome back Max, says, what are your thoughts on power scaling versus master volumes? Power scaling MOSFETs adding another complication. I've never been a fan of power scaling. For a number of reasons. The main one from a player's point of view is I feel that unless you're using them just to knock a few dBs off, quite often they just add, well, they take too much away from your core tone. They add fizz and all the frequencies where you definitely don't want fizz. And voltage reduction, as these often things are, yeah, as I said, something has to be a compromise. Whereas with a master volume, you can be more, you have more options about where in the circuit you put it and to which style it is, as to how you attenuate your signal that way. But I often find that the perfect master volume for that particular amp always ends up sounding better than the best power scaling that you can get. Caveats apply, and I know some of you would immediately go, yeah, well, my amp's got this power scaling and I think it sounds great. Wonderful, brilliant. But I could, when I'm designing an amp, I can do more with the power scaling and retain more of the stuff I want than I can with power scaling. So that's generally my thoughts. So you've got three options really. You've got master volumes, you've got power scaling or voltage reduction inside the amplifier, or you've got those attenuator units that sit between the amplifier and the speaker. And I would always put power scaling at the bottom of those three, then the attenuators, then master volumes at the top being the preferred option. So yeah, that's generally my thoughts as to what I prefer and what I don't prefer. The Tone King Iron Man attenuator is very good. I do like that one. And the Marshall Power Break system works very well with Marshall style amps. Not with all types of amps, and which is why you seem to get a lot of arguments online about which is best. It seems to be there are better options for certain situations. So, but yeah, that's my thing. I always prefer, if I'm out of any of those three, do a master volume, do it well, work out what it's doing and why, and then you can optimize that and you'll get the best result you can. So Watkins and Wems amps are, and Wem amps, sorry, are the sort of stuff that that my American viewers might not be too familiar with. It's, British branded, British made amplifiers that rarely made it over the pond to the States. Sort of equivalent to like Valcos and stuff, I would say. We don't often get those over here. There are some, but they're not. It's not like Fenders and Marshalls, and Voxes, which of course are the big players, and therefore there's more of them out there. But the most famous amp that Watkins did was the Dominator, which is a 2 EL84 output stage amplifier, and that's the one that Marshall then used as the basis for their famous 18 watt, which you guys may have got over there. Now the Scout apparently is just a single channel version of a Dominator, whereas the Dominator had 2 channels. This has, Oh, well, I guess this does have two channels. It's got the microphone input and the guitar input. So we'll do a spot the difference on the schematics and see if we can work out exactly what's what. I'm not actually too familiar with the Scout, but thankfully there's a great resource of information out there, so I will be able to tell you the differences and do my learning quite quickly, so be fine. Not really much to do with these amplifiers anyway. They're relatively simple, very toneful, and not difficult to work on. And there we go. So it's either a Goodman's or an ELAC speaker. That's an Alnico. Probably a Goodman's, but we will confirm that. Single 10 inches, isn't it? Your 10-inch driver? Yeah. Let's have a look then. So we have got a very, very early style PCB. Yeah, very, very early style. Now, first things I notice, it's got the original electrolytic, so we're going to do those as pretty standard. We've got a very toasty looking dropper resistor here, so we'll have to check that. Now, if you ever see in an amplifier, and we learnt this when working on old radios and things, these Hunt's tone caps, these black ones, are notorious for cracking and leaking. So whenever we saw those in old valve or tube radios, even if they looked good, often they were dead. So as a matter of course, we never leave these in. We always swap these black Hunt's caps out. Got some nice toasty looking resistors as well. So we've got a lot of work in here. Haven't seen one of those red Hunts for a while. Look at that beauty. Oh yeah. So yeah, definitely in need of a going through. So lots of different ways to approach this, isn't there? We can either stick some valves in it, fire it up on the bench, and do an assessment on it. And because I know the customer has been using it, I'm quite happy for that to happen, especially if I put the light bulb current limiter in circuit. That's fine. But if this was a barn find or an attic find, then I certainly wouldn't be powering it up until at least I'd swapped out the reservoir cap and given this a full visual inspection. So should we just pull the chassis down, have a look at the transformers on the back, and then we can finish our visual inspection and make a plan for the Scout. Henrik says, not directly related, I suppose, to the video that he commented on, but I do have a question. I see several YouTube techs paralleling solid-state diodes across a valve rectifier to protect both itself and the output transformer. Makes some sense, but doesn't that defeat the whole point of having a valve rectifier there at all? I always thought about the limitations of a rectifier valve in terms of the sudden increase in current draw was what gave the rail voltage sag, which was the reason to go with a valve rectifier in the first place. Correct. I would assume that solid-state diodes would cover for the valve when it comes to that scenario, basically making the end result a solid-state rectified amp. What am I missing? Well, what you're missing is that those rectifier valve diodes are not in parallel. They are in series with the rectifier valve. Which is why it's important not to look at a layout, but actually look at a schematic so you can see how things actually are. And you'll see that often you'll get the two transform wires coming in, then some rectifier diodes, then the valve rectifier. So any sag is still inherent in the rectifier valve itself, but these diodes, or flyback diodes, as we often call them, are used to prevent protect the transformer should you get a a rectifier valve failure, yes, they are doing some pre-rectification, but not all of it, but they're protection diodes, they're just there. But yeah, as I said, what you are missing in that scenario, Henrik, is that they're not in parallel, they are in series. Here we go then. Surprisingly clean. I do like these, it's not hammerite finish, what do you call it? But it looks great. Do like it. So we've got power transformer here, we've got our filter cap here, probably a 50-50. It is a Plessy. We'll double check the date code on it, but I think it's 60s, 63. But again, so we'll double check. Output transformer over here. It's got a number of components mounted on the side. So this is part of what we call a Zobel network, or tone correction network. So that helps compensate for the rising impedance that happens when frequency increases, you get a change of an impedance. So that just helps deal with that. You can look into Zobel, Zobell net. Oh, is it double L or single L? Can't remember. I think it's single L. Zobel. If you Google Zobel networks, it's quite easy to understand. There you go. So here's our speaker cable that I've disconnected from the speaker itself. So customer said he wants them to have an extension socket fitted as well. So what we might do is wire up 2 sockets and then add a jack plug to the speaker itself, and then just give it more of a traditional arrangement, so you can disconnect one or the other. I'll talk to the customer, see what he wants to do, but yeah, not really much else to say on this thing. Look, very nice. Spin you back over. Do you know, after working on so many Fenders lately, this thing is so lightweight. There we go. Pots along the front. All your standard bits and pieces. Not really much else to say. Cool. All right. So that's enough on this amp for this episode. I'll give you more info and updates on it as we go through the process on it. I am going to get it on the bench, stick the valves in it, and just make sure there's no immediate issues that stand out in terms of, you know, I'm going to drive it with a signal, check the output, etc, etc. But yeah, it's looking nice. Ray says Fender makes amps, rebuild it with a dual high gain instead of the tremolo and boost it to 130 watts. Thanks for your suggestion, Ray. I completely disagree with you, but thanks for your comment. Russell says, I'd skip building a champ. The modern version of the On volume pot is crappy and a bit dangerous. The Princeton is a stellar choice. It's as simple as can be, but a truly great amp. Oh, the champ is 4 ohm with an 8-inch speaker. The Princeton has an 8 ohm 10-inch speaker. So first of all, it's a customer order, so I'm not going to skip building it. I'm going to building it because that's what the customer wants. Secondly, I actually agree with you about those on-off switches on the champs. But if you want them to look as those original champs did, with the volume pot that's got the built-in on switch, yeah, don't use those ones that you can buy that just switch the live. UK EU law says that for captive mains cables, we do have to switch both the live and the neutral, which is why I had these ones made for me by Omeg here in the UK, and 4-pole on the back, so I can switch both the live and the neutral at the same time, and that's a 1 meg audio pot. So I had these made quite a few years ago just for champs. And that's fully up to all the regulations and codes, so that's perfectly safe to use, and it allows me to keep the correct look from the outside of the amplifier. As regarding the 8-inch versus 10-inch speakers, again, the customer wants an 8-inch Fender Champ style amplifier, 5F1, so that's what he's getting. Not my choice, customer's choice. And actually, I don't think 10 inches work well with the 5F1 circuit. They sound really good with a 12-inch speaker. They sound really good for a 4x12. We've ever done that. It's hilarious. You know, plug a Tweed champ into a Marshall 4x12 is one of the funniest but greatest sounds you'll ever come across. But also, some of those 8-inch speakers are really good. They've got a really fast transient attack. It's like a little hill biter of an amp snapping away at you like a little terrier. You can get some really cool things, really cool sounds out of those. And of course, if you've ever seen, I've gone blank now, the jazz player who plays a Telecaster, and Julian Lage, of course. That Nocturne tune he does, and that's just an old telly into a Tweed champ. One of the greatest sounds on YouTube. So I disagree with you on that one, Russell. Regarding the super reverb, he said that super reverb isn't valuable, yet restore it as an example of the era because it is one. I can agree with you on that. If you want a reimagined amp, do a clone. Yeah, fair enough. I love what Nick at Seriatone is doing with his reimagined All Access series of amps. Very cool stuff. Okay, so yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. I am erring more towards doing a resurrection on the amp, rebuild it as it was. I mean, it's my amp, so you know, but fixing some of the inherent design issues with those amps, bringing it up to spec and code, but also keeping it with that vintage look. So that's kind of where I think I'm going to go with it. But lots of options for the normal channel, so probably basement. But as I said, I will keep you guys updated to what I actually decide to do in the future. Thank you, Russell. Update on the AC15 50th anniversary, the biasing on the amp. Well, the work is now all complete. So I've done the full F&T recap. I've replaced some of those burnt resistors, the screen resistors and the heater balancers as well. But just a reminder, this is where we ended up at the end of the last video, where first of all, we discovered that our screen voltage is higher than our anode or plate voltage, which is a no-no. Originally, they were biased at 16.2 watts. That's anode plus screen combined. Blah, blah, blah. I quickly installed I upped the value of the cathode resistor from 130 ohms to 181. And that brought everything down. Our screen voltage still higher than our anodes. But we were down at about 108% or 12.95 watts for both combined. So what I've done is I've stuck with the same cathode resistor value, so 180 ohms, which is exactly 181 in circuit, but I have increased the value of the screen stoppers from 100 ohm to 1000 ohm. And the reason I did that was just to give me a ballpark and find out where we needed to go, and then I could adjust up and down accordingly. So here's the new numbers. So as we know, current decreases, voltage increases. So our anode to cathode voltage is now increased by 3 volts up to 355, but our screen voltage has now come down to be exactly the same, which is kind of the maximum of where we want it to be, but it's not 5 volts higher anymore. So good news. We're now running so this is where we are, as I say. So voltage, so we're now running slightly hotter at 13.43 watts, but what I've done is I've measured the voltage drop across the screen, the 1000 ohm screen stopper, 3.82 volts on each side. Voltage divided by resistance 1000 ohms means we're running at 3.8 milliamps of screen screen current, which means the screens are dissipating 1.35 watts, which is the maximum is 2 watts. So if we can deduct that number from that number, we get just under 12 watts, which is the maximum for the anodes or the plates. So this really, or these valves now that are in the amp are running at really, there they are, the maximum data sheet numbers. Okay, so they're really at the very top end of the tolerance. So I've got to make a decision as whether I increase the cathode resistor to a 220 that will cool everything down even more. Now I'm tempted to not, and here's why. We know that EL84s shouldn't be run too hot. That's obviously not a good thing, and we've got enough experience with that to show why. But they also don't like being run too cold, and especially in a cathode biased amp, so you do have to find the right point. Now, I've often found that most failures come from the screen over dissipating. So by having the larger screen stoppers in there, and just by bringing them down to their theoretical maximum, we should be okay. So I'm going to soak test this amp as it is for the moment, then come back, double check everything, and then make a final decision about where I go with it in the future. So, but I'm telling you, the way it's running on the bench now, the output sine wave, I'll should put it on in a minute for you. It's much better indeed. Happy with this. All the F&Ts are done, as you can see across the board. So it's actually running really nicely. Big fan of this amp now, and it actually sounds great. Very noise free, very quiet in a good way, very toneful. So I think the customer's going to be very happy with the way this amplifier has turned out, and we're not stressing everything anywhere near that it was before. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up, or your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're feeling super generous like these guys were, why not join the channel? And I will catch you all at the next one. So for those that are interested, I had my first championship race, first race of the year, and it's the opening round of the championship. That was at the weekend up at Croft, which is all the way up north, about 4 hours from here. It's one of my favourite circuits, incredibly bumpy. So how did it go? Well, as expected, the car was fast. It was wonderfully balanced, beautiful to drive. I started the race P3, and I was in a battle with the yellow BMW Compact that I'm always racing against for the overall win, or the class win, sorry. Scrapping throughout, big safety car period in the middle of the race. So we all pitted under the safety car. I came out ahead in the lead. Good old racing, but then unfortunately, due to a pit stop infringement, I got given a 1 minute stop and go penalty, which unfortunately dropped me down back to third in class where I started, and that's where I finished. So I did get a trophy, had a really good race. I'm going to put a clip at the end of this bit now where you can see how hectic it was after the safety car restart. You see me battling this yellow BMW. He did actually managed to overtake me. I made a mistake into turn one, went into the gravel, and he stuck up on the inside. It's really, really fun to watch. I am going to put a link into this video to the full race footage on my on the 2RM channel. So if you're interested in watching that, please click that link, go and watch. But yeah, I will apologise though. I don't swear on this channel, but I do in the racing video, you know, full of adrenaline and all that stuff. So I apologise for that in advance, but I think it's important to keep these things raw and as they were. So yeah, go and enjoy that. Had a really good race. The next round of the championship is at the end of May at Silverstone, my local circuit on the Grand Prix layout. However, this weekend, the other series that I used to race in is also there. So I'm doing that race, sharing the car with my friend Nick as a bit of a warm-up for the championship round. So yeah, it looks like the weather's going to be great as well. So really looking forward to that. I'll keep you all updated how we get on.
Yeah, and of course Parker was there, was waiting to pass the green flag, past the timing line as well, to make an overtake legitimate, which it wouldn't have been until that point. But he's effectively a lap down, but he's going to be on a very similar pace, and probably actually a bit quicker, if anything, now than the car ahead, and he's attacking to unlap himself is Scott Parkin. number 89, who's in 15th position. The leader, Martin Gadsby, then, number 117, turns his way through Tower Corner. You've got Parkin a lap down in second. He's going to try and unlap him, second on the road. Going to try and unlap himself here.
I wonder if he knows he's on paper a lap down. Because it doesn't look like he does know that. I think he's defending still. He's like, oh, Scott's, yeah, I'm racing Scott, I need to defend against him. But like, no, you don't. Scott's a lap. Oh no, there you go.
Up the inside he goes, and yeah, there'll all be, or most of them probably have radios as well back to the team to let them know what the positions are and what's going on. That's the Mark Burton car. Now that's another of the cars that lost out really, going from first to seventh in Class B. Within that safety car intervention, so he's going to try and make him some ground. The 34 Lotus in there, that's the car that was advertised for Rob Bottom. It's a change of driver actually come with the race, which I'll check about. That's the Brooks car, as it's shown on the timing screen now. That's making its way through, and yeah, it's all very chaotic, isn't it? This car's trying to find their rightful position in the order. Chaotic
is the right word. I mean, look at there's so many cars trying for one bit of track, and you don't know who's on the same lap as you, who's a lap ahead, and who's a lap behind. You just don't know. Even we, looking at this train, we don't, oh, there's a clear in the grass. That's not ideal. We don't know who's on what lap, so we've just got to try and talk about, okay, yeah. So you'd have to see Banks Perry, number 7 entry. They've just gone in second in class. That's the Janetta I was just talking about. Right behind McKee in the 36. Now that's a bit quite slow. Why? He just might be in the corner, but no, he's been overtaken. I'm not 100% sure. Never mind. But yeah, we just don't know what's going on. But I have no idea what's going on.
That's your commentator, Kieran Moore, telling you he's got no idea what's going on. I'll pretend that I do. 44 car there, that's Alok Iyengar that's taken over that car, I think, from Ben Williams. There's some dust being kicked up on the exit of Tower Corner. This one I think has gone wide there. Black and orange mechanical warning flag going out to somebody. I think that's to the 34 car possibly. Yeah, that's the Elisa, which is Ben Brooks driving that car. He's taken that over from Rob Bott. I think possibly we need to watch out for that. The roof might be trying to park the car on the Lotus from what I can gather.
It wouldn't be the first time it's happened.
No. The 19 there is Wayne Lawson. That's the car that we're having the little pit stop tour without. Now a black flag going out as well. Which we will update you on. There's black and white driving standards flags going out too, so there's all colours of flags going out. But it is still the BMW leading, but by how much? Because it was down to 3/4 of a second at the start of this lap, and I think the lead has changed, I can see, out of the commentary box window, in that Morgan Bailey has taken the lead of the race now. He's got ahead of Martin Gadsby. Morgan Bailey from 36 has taken the lead of the race. Meanwhile, there is Sam McKee, and he now is in the lead of Class C because he's got ahead of the Janetta of Daniel Perry, number 7.
Yes, absolutely. This is, so lead changes all over the place at the moment, and yes, I'm just waiting obviously for the leaders to come across the line. You can see the number 36 and number 7, so this is the battle leads for Class C.
And it's the three-way battle because you've got in there as well the Matt Creed BMW, so it's a bit confusing what's going on elsewhere, but this is the clearest and cleanest battle of the race. It's Sam McKee. Well, he said he was a championship contender, and I thought he was being cheeky.